Hi, everyone. Welcome once again to Mentoring Developers. This is a podcast for you and a YouTube show. If you are a new developer or you want to be a developer or you know somebody who is a developer and you want to just pass this on, this is a good place for them. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, and you can find us everywhere. Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts or on YouTube. So this episode is all about Redis, which is a system that you can use to improve performance, store your information in the database somehow, but it's in memory and it's fast. And we have someone from Redis who's going to teach us how to do this in 20 minutes or less. That's the challenge, right, Guy?
20 minutes or less guaranteed, or you get your money back.
Or you get your
the pizza's free. Yeah.
Right. So people who are regular listeners and regular viewers, they would know that Guy has been on this show before, and we had a great conversation. So if you want to learn more about him, you can go check out that episode. But today we're going to talk about Redis. Now, I know a little bit about Redis. I may have used it a little bit also, but I have no memory of it, if I ever did. I know the concept. I may have used equivalent products, but I'm not a Redis expert. So for me, I'm going to be learning as a beginner. And I'm sure that people who are watching right now, they're also thinking, yeah, I've heard a lot about it. I haven't used it so much. I'm not that confident about it. And so we're going to take you from the position of being a complete beginner, but quickly get started and get something going. So, Guy, what do you do at Redis?
I'm actually a developer advocate, so I do this kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's some of this community kind of work like this, where I go out and just share my knowledge with folks that are trying to learn. But I also take feedback from the community and help improve our product to make the experience of using it better as well. And so I have to be a developer, but I also have to be a people person. So I kind of have to have my foot in two worlds. I have a foot in two different worlds, 2 feet in two worlds. I don't know, whatever those ratios work out to be, right? A foot in each world. That's the expression I'm looking for. And all right. So that's what I do with Redis Labs. I don't work on the core product. I mean, it's Redis is an open source product, and then there's a commercial version as well, which is how Redis Labs makes their money, of course, by selling a beefier, more I don't know, grown-up version maybe might be a good way to say it, but it just has all those bells and whistles that enterprises want, mm-hmm. or if you want to do the cloud version, if you're like a startup, it's
right.
The cloud version is very friendly because it's like it starts at $7 a month, and
right,
that sort of stuff.
If you are a new developer and you're learning, you can start with the free version. But if you want something that's well supported, that maybe has a little bit more of an SLA behind it or some kind of guarantee, then you can.
And actually, the commercial version does have a free version as well, a free tier. It's small, but it's serviceable. So
okay. Perfect to get started.
So I probably should talk about what the heck this thing is, shouldn't I?
Yes. What is it? Right now, people are thinking, what are they talking about?
Yeah, they're just talking about how to get it. I don't know. I don't know if I want it yet or not.
Yeah.
So the nice little one-line elevator pitchy kind of way of describing Redis is to say it's an in-memory NoSQL database. Now, most people have, if you've heard of Redis, I feel like there's actually two audiences today. There's the audience of, I've used Redis, it's a cache. Mm-hmm. And then there's the audience of, what's this Redis thing? I haven't heard of this, and why should I care about it? And so to both of you, I'm going to tell you it's a database. It is an in-memory database, and so it makes an excellent cache. But it also persists things to disk as well, so it also makes an excellent database. It's kind of both at the same time. It has the performance characteristics of a cache, but can have the persistence of a database. And it is at its heart a key value store, meaning you have a key. You set a key to a particular value, and then you go out and get that key from it. So set foo, and then to a value, and then you can go out and get foo later. Those values that you can store, are not just strings. They can be, well, they're all the data structures that you learned about in computer science data structures class, if you took computer science and took a data structures class. And if you haven't taken those, it's things like strings, which are just, honestly, they're actually blobs or just binary data. There's hashes for hash tables, so we can store hash tables in Redis. You've got sets, of the Venn diagram set theory variety. We've got, well, let's just take a look at some of our structures here. I've got this is the best page in all of Redis documentation ever, is the redis.io/commands. Tells you all the Redis commands.
That's perfect.
And there's a little drop down for all the types. So you've got hashes. You got hyperlog log, which is a probabilistic data structure. You've got geo sets, so you can have a set of locations and then query it and say, give me all the positions that are in the set that are within like 50 miles of this position. Right, it's kind of cool. Keys is just a way of looking at the keys that you have stored things in. Lists, that for linked lists. It's got a pub sub feature for publishing and subscribing messages. You can script it with Lua if you're into that sort of thing.
I love Lua.
Sets, which I mentioned earlier, sorted sets, which are sets with a number value associated with them. Streams. So this is, this is stream processing. So it's event streaming. So Redis can make a good, like middleware bus sort of architecture. Strings, which are just straight up strings. And then there's options for transactions too. We probably won't get into all these things because we got 20 minutes, but these are sort of the categories things. And this is a great site if we want to look at like string. Let's click on strings here. It just shows us all the string methods that there are. And there's like things to look at them as far as their bits and append them and stuff. You can get and set them. And you can get multiples and set multiple things. And there's lots of commands, right? Hundreds and hundreds of commands in Redis. To get this wonderful database, there are really three ways to do it. One is that you can go to app.redislabs.com and sign up for a cloud version and get a little 30 meg cloud database that you can play with. Okay. Another is that you can download and install it either from source or using sudo apt-get or whatever your installer of choice is on Linux. On Mac, I think you can do brew install Redis. The problem with the package managers is they tend to they lag behind in their version, and so if you use the source, you get a more current version. And then the third way that you can do that is you can just you can use Docker, which is the way I do it. So let me bring back VS Code here. I've got a little shell script that I use to use Docker. If I scroll this down here, if we can see that.
So people who are wondering right now what Docker is, it's a container system where the application is self-contained, so that you can have all the dependencies all packaged up, so you don't have to have different dependencies conflicting with other different applications that you might want to run. So it's a nice little way of having just trying something out, also maybe using it in production, right? So, because people are wondering, what is this Docker? So I just want to make sure that they understand this is...
Yeah, I guess I should have mentioned that. Yeah, it's like, if someone's asking what's Redis, they're probably also asking what's Docker. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it allows me to run containers from images. And we have an image called Redis mod. And there's another image called Redis. I'm using Redis mod because Redis has a capability to be extended to add new types called modules. And Redis mod has several modules loaded into it already. And so I pull that image from Docker Hub. So that brings it down to my machine. And then I say, well, now that I have this image, run it in a container. So it's just like images on AWS. And the containers is just a little tiny virtual machine that I'm running on my computer. And so I'm telling it, Docker run, delete this when you're done. I don't want to hang on to it. Map my ports. So Docker or Redis listens on port 6379. So we say map 6379 to 6379. This allows me to mount a volume, which is use some part of my hard drive for this fake computer's hard drive.
Right.
And in that case, I'm using the present working directory with a little folder. And then this is a bunch of Redis commands to load modules for different modules, which we're not going to look at, but this is the one I tend to use. And this tells Redis here, to shove all of its data into the directory folder. So if I go ahead and start this, see it spins up here really quick. This would be just the time for it to pull the latest version and actually have an update, wouldn't it? So now Redis is running. So what, right? Well, let's go ahead and...
So Redis is running inside a Docker container inside your machine. So it's going to act like it's as if it's on a server. It's the same thing. It's running on its own port.
Right.
Now you can make requests using... So to make a request, you need the IP, which is your local host, and then your port. So now you have the full information to make a connection.
Right.
So let's see
and if we had configured it with a username and a password, we could do that as well. I have not. There are a couple ways to get to Redis.
It's a good idea to use more secure versions. So don't use this in production, kids. Just for demos.
Exactly. So the main tool that I use to interact with Redis is the Redis CLI. There's the Redis command line interface. And now it tells me and it defaults to localhost 6379. And so now I'm in Redis. This database should be empty. If I do, I can list out the keys. This is one of the most dangerous commands that you can use. Keys star. This will return all the keys. I have no keys. The reason this is dangerous is because if you have 1 billion keys, it will return them all.
Wow.
Which is bad because that's going to keep the machine kind of busy. And Redis is single-threaded behind the scenes. And so what that means is that no one else can do anything while it's returning all those keys to you.
Wow.
Which is bad. Right?
Which is pretty bad.
So don't do that in production. Well, I mean, if you know you have a small number of keys, then it's safe,
right.
Which is why I have a bad habit of doing it. But so anyhow, this is just showing that we have an empty database. So if we want to set a string, we can use a string command. It's just set. And then we'll give a string called foo, and we'll give it a value of, let's give it a value of hello world.
Okay.
Right. Now I can say get foo, and it gets it.
Nice. So it's just keys and values. Yeah, it's like a hash or a dictionary in .NET where you have set of keys, you have values. So it's very fast because you can map the keys, so the system is able to get those values out very fast because of the structure, the data structure that is, because the keys have to be unique. Pretty good.
So one of the things that's kind of cool is when you set a key, let's set bar equal to hello expiration.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can specify either in seconds or milliseconds. You can probably see that on my screen here, that I want this to last for 15 seconds. Now I'm going to be really quick here.
Okay.
Now if I get bar, it gets it. Get it again, get it again. It keeps getting it. But if I blather on here for a few more seconds, eventually it's going to go away. It's going to automatically delete it. 15 seconds was too long.
No, but I think it's probably good now. Let's try again.
Yeah, let's try now.
Yes.
Okay, now it's returning nil because it doesn't exist. Like if you get anything that's not there,
right.
Let's get baz, it just returns nil.
Right.
So this is why it makes a good cache, because it automatically expires. And so it does make a great cache, but it also is a database. If I type save, you'll notice my Redis folder over here on the top left now has something in it.
Nice.
And it created a dump.rdb, which is the default file name. If we bring that up in a hex editor, we see, look, foo, hello world. Right?
Nice. You actually saved it in binary, so that's why you
actually saved it, right?
Yeah. So it is just like a database. Then it just has the additional feature of making it expirable. So it's a cache, but it's also a database. So isn't it?
It's both.
So it because it persists, right? Because when I used Redis, or when I really heard about Redis, we only heard it in the context of caching, right? You want a temporary cache to improve performance that is in front of a database. So instead of hitting the database, you hit Redis. That was the idea that I had, at least. So this is new for me.
Yeah. Well, and I typed the save command specifically to force it to save. When you start up Redis, you can configure it and say save every so many transactions or so many minutes. There's you can configure all that. And so you can put up a level of risk tolerance.
Nice.
If you have it saved for after every single transaction that comes in, every command that comes in, then you lose the speed benefit.
Right.
And so what you do is you say, well, how many minutes of data or how many seconds of data am I willing to lose?
Right.
Or how much memory? It's like after this much memory's changed, save it out. So save it out every 10 transactions, or save it out periodic. There's different ways to configure that to take a level of risk that you're willing to take for your application.
Quick question.
And then there's also features where you can replicate it too, so that you can have high availability across multiple servers, which then means the saving doesn't need to happen as frequently and so there's a balancing act there, right?
Right.
So can you lose a little bit of data? Is it locked tight, right? No, it's not. You can lose a little bit of data,
right?
Because it's a cap theorem thing for those who know what that is. Basically, cap theorem is saying that there's 3 pillars on a database. Pick 2, right? Right. It's like the 3 pillars of the iron triangle of project management says you can have quality, speed, and cost. Pick 2, right? The same thing here. In this case, you lose a little bit of reliability, but you get better performance, and you can get replication. So, and I'm not like an expert on cap theorem, so
right.
I don't know.
So what happens
it's just a slightly different trade-off than like what a relational database would give you.
Right, certainly. So you cannot use that as a reliable storage mechanism if you are doing banking and every little thing that happens needs to persist exactly in the order and exactly at the right time. Then you wouldn't use that. But if you had, you're making a chatting application, you could do that. Where if you lost
you would adjust the way you configure it. There are ways that you can configure Redis to even be suitable for banking and financial transactions. Replication helps immensely. So if you have enough replication between your servers, then you're not going to lose. The windows for losing data are very, very small.
Right.
And we even have an extension called Redis Raft, which changes that cap theorem, the two pillars, so that you can get that reliable if you need it in that scenario.
Very nice.
So there are ways to do it. I don't want to say please never use this for banking.
No, okay.
I might get fired. I might get fired if I said that.
No, Guy is not saying don't use it for banking. I'm saying that if you're using any system that is not guaranteeing you availability or persistence at 100%, and if you're working in a regulated industry where you have legal requirements to adhere to, then you would think about it, and then you may still choose it. Again, but for our types of application that casual developers use, or maybe we're making something where we know that every single piece of data is not critical. For instance, I use the example of if you're live streaming something, or you have a chatting application where 2 people are talking to each other. If occasionally you lose some information and you miss a little bit of the chat history once in a while, once a month you lost a sentence, I think that's okay. That's an acceptable thing for performance reasons, because performance is the key factor here. So for the 80% use case, this sounds good to me. For the other, well, we'll dig into it and then we'll look at the options.
Yeah, it really does depend on what you're doing.
Right.
No tool from any company is ever the one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah. So I have a question about this, because when you said that you can actually have this auto-saved, all the values are saved at a frequency because you don't want to save it every time because of performance, perfect. But if you had something which was expiring, or let's say that you set a key that set to expire in an hour, and then before the hour is up, you save it. Does that value also get saved, even though it is temporary? So then, if it gets saved into persistent storage, do you also expire those things, those keys?
So there's a couple different things happening there. There's 2 different persistence mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the RDB where the file that we looked at here, the dump.rdb, that is basically a dump of memory.
Right.
So it is the memory thing that Redis is looking at when you ask it questions and modify it, written to a file. The other way is we have what is called an append-only file, which is essentially a transaction log that you can then replay. So there's two ways of storing it, and you can do both for different reasons in different ways. Those are all going to get recorded there. So I do have, there's one thing I don't know. I know that if we had saved it after I had typed, this expiring value, it would have gotten saved in there. And I don't know how it will expire if you stopped Redis and brought it back up from that saved file. I think it timestamps it, and so it would say the timestamp's gone. And would delete it when it loaded it up. But it could just be counting.
Right. So this is a question. Yeah. So
I don't actually know the answer.
Right. This is good to know.
Test, right?
For me, I'm just thinking from, the point of view of someone who has never really, worked with Redis deeply. I know a little bit. So all these questions are coming to me. But this is great. So now, so far we know that we can set up a Redis instance in a Docker image quickly. Takes seconds. And then you could be up and running. We know we can go to this Redis website, that page with lists of commands, and we can log in to the console and then issue commands, get this, set that, and then other things. Perfect. So now we can manually create our database. But in real life, what we'd want to do is we'd want to have an application, maybe a website that actually uses that, right? Make calls to that database, so to use as a backend. Anything that you can show us about how that works?
Sure. So the next obvious question is how do I put this in my application, right?
Yeah.
For starters, before that, the protocol that the Redis uses, the wire protocol, it's just a socket stream. It's actually pretty simple, and so if you wanted to, you could write your own client. Now, I'm not recommending that. There's plenty of good clients out there, but I have actually written C code that I ran on an Arduino to consume that protocol.
Oh wow!
And so you can do cool stuff like that. So it's very approachable, but I'm going to go ahead and show how to do this with a Node application. And so there's a lot of client libraries out there that you can just bring in for all the different tools, dev tools you might use. So if you're a Node developer, you can use, there's one called Node Redis and another called IO Redis. IO Redis is my library of choice. If you're a Java developer, there's Jedis and Lettuce. There's lots and lots of tools to do this. So Redis is a popular tool. In fact, I'll show you here. If I go to clients, here are all the languages. And then as you scroll down, right, here's all the C++ clients, right? So there's just hundreds of these things. So if I go to Node, where is it at? Node.js. So here are all the clients that are available for Node.
Okay.
So this is quite a few, right?
Node is very, very popular these days. And I think that once you have a variety of clients, I think that developers are using it and they run into a problem, they create a client. So there's going to be good support. That's good to know.
So let's do let's see. I need to create nvm use 15. I'm using Node version manager. I want to make sure I'm using a current version of Node. So let's go ahead and npm init dot init. All the defaults here. So we got a little package JSON here for a Node application. We don't care about this. I really don't care about that either, or that or that. We're going to say type module. And that allowed me to use import outports in JavaScript.
Nice.
Server.js. So server.js is the default file. So if I, just to show this working here for everyone, if I do a console.log, hello world, and if I say npm start, it says hello world. So, hey, we did hello world in super quick.
You got Node working, which is great.
Yeah, so Node's working. So I'm going to do npm install io redis -- save, and that will install io redis and put it in my package JSON here. So you see io redis is now there.
Mm-hmm.
And now instead of saying hello world, I'm going to import Redis from io redis. This will bring io redis in, and then I can say we'll just say r equal new Redis. That will connect to Redis just like the Redis CLI did on port 6379 and on localhost. If I wanted to give it a specific thing, I could say Redis : localhost.
Right. And the reason you
6379
you have a typo there on localhost.
Oh yeah.
So
localhost.
that would be a much better alias. But so for people who are maybe looking at it for the first time, what you're saying is that because people give demos, I mean, Redis has a default. This constructor has a default, which is localhost in 6379. Since we use a defaults, we don't need to do that. But when we have actually a deployed instance of Redis, we could put the actual domain name and actual port number there.
Yeah.
And then so
and you could put the password in it as well. So I think this is the syntax for password. Like that.
Which is fine, which is fine for development, but we're gonna have to think about how things work in demos. Is not always, it's just a little tip, not always the way it should work in real life. Demos are there for for simplicity. So there are options. So if you are thinking about using this for your production, get in touch with me. We'll talk.
Yeah, that's probably what you do in an actual production environment.
Yes, use environment variables. Perfect. All right.
And then when this becomes a container, then you can just set that through your orchestration and your
right. Perfect.
So this creates a new connection to Redis.
Okay.
And then it's r.set, and we'll say foo. Now, actually, let's just do a get.
Okay.
We got data out there already.
We already have it.
Our server's still running, right?
Yeah.
So we're just going to get foo. Say let's s equal foo.
And console log it. How do you display it? Yep.
Now this isn't going to work because this is asynchronous. So I need to await that. But I can't await that. I'm not in a function. So I think I can yield it.
Okay.
That'll work.
Let's see if it works.
I'm not positive this work. Calling an audible here.
That's okay. We'll find out.
That didn't work. Okay, so that's fine. That is not a problem. I'll just create a function main. And then down here, I'll just call main. And then I'll make this function asynchronous.
And await.
And then this.
Did you know that this syntax is exactly how we do this kind of stuff, asynchronous coding in C#?
Didn't know that, actually. I've done this in C# as well.
This is literally how you do that in C#. So
Python's actually adopted a very similar syntax as well. So it's cool. All the languages are merging into one. So it said hello world because it called get on Redis. Right.
Perfect.
So if I can go into the Redis here and say set foo to be goodbye, Oops. And I go back and run my code again. And I didn't close the connection. The problem was never resolved. So that's a really simple interaction, right?
Yeah.
But that, so it's very easy to put it in your application as well. And all those commands that I showed you earlier all work in here, right? So if I wanted to say r.hset, I can pass in a key and say, what ones haven't I used? Let's use foobar. We'll use Baz, and then we can pass in, I believe, it'll do. We'll figure that out. And now if we go back over to the Redis CLI, look at our keys here. Got Baz. We can say hget all Baz and see if I did this right here. Yeah. So foo is set to test, bar is set to 42. So I've created a hash table there instead of just a simple set.
Very nice. Yeah. So you can
so,
create complicated data structures, simple scalars. Perfect. And does it support?
Here's a fun trick.
Yeah, go for it.
Too is these are strings, but they're not actually strings.
They're not.
Right, they're just binary data, and they can be numbers. It'll treat it to whatever they need to be. So if I say set num equal to 42, not equal, set num 42, and then I say get num 42, right? I can say inker. Now it's incrementing it as an integer. So you can even do it on a field that doesn't exist.
So it's converting this string value into it. It's like it's pretty cool, but
this is actually a safe way to generate unique IDs.
Really?
Because Redis is single-threaded, no one else will be incrementing it at the same time, so it becomes an atomic operation. So you could actually go out and generate a new key for yourself each time.
That's nice. Okay, what kind of data types does Redis support? Is it just everything is a string, but it has internal types?
It's all strings, but they're not really strings. It's just memory. Because obviously I'm treating this as a number, and so it's treating as it will behave as if it's a number. I don't have to restrict myself even to things that are string representable. So let's do. I don't know if I have a handy binary file here. Let me see if I have but I could take like an image. And I could, Redis from the command line. You say Redis CLI. I can say get foo, and it just runs it. But I can also say -x set blob, and that -x says take everything that's entered from standard in, and make that the rest of this command. And so let's do something perverse. And put dump.rdb in there.
I was thinking about that.
Right, and it said, okay. Yeah. So now if I go back to the Redis CLI and look at my keys here, there is blob. If I say get blob, it returns a C-style string containing that text. And see, there's our little hello world from when we last saved it. Yeah. So you can actually store binary data in here as well. So this could be images, and they could be quite large actually.
So how does the operation happen? I'm thinking, okay, if you're incrementing, but if it's not a real number, let's say that it's say
inker foo.
Right.
This foo has goodbye everybody. It'll give you an error.
So okay,
that doesn't make sense, right?
What if it's it's a decimal number, so float or something like that can be.
I haven't tried that one actually. Set foo equal to 1.234. No.
Of course.
We'll use pi, right? Why? Of course, right? Say inker foo.
No.
Yeah, Anchor only works on integers. So
Makes sense.
there's also Anchor B or increment by. I call it Anchor B. I like to pronounce
Of
the
course.
commands. And so you can say Anchor B. What's the one I was next ID? Type this correctly. So that increments it by 5. So that's a lot. I mean, there's a bajillion commands, and you can do this with set values. You say H Anchor B. Anchor B. And that was Baz, and then I called it, and then it was bar, and we'll increment it by 1, 1, 1.
Nice.
And so now if we H get all on Baz, see now it's 45. So millions of commands to do.
Yeah,
it's and then there's modules extended even more. So the two most popular modules are Redis Search, which allows you to index. So you can create an index in Redis Search that looks at all of the hashes that match a particular key pattern. So all the keys that are hashes that start with the word foo or whatever. And then you can do full text search and key search and even geo search against that set of data. And there's Redis JSON, which lets you put JSON values in a key, and then gives you a whole slew of methods that do all the things that you would think that you would ever want to do on a JSON object. So it's
well, I'm loving it.
Actually,
this is great.
Yeah, those are both pretty cool. Redis Search in particular is cool. I mean, honestly, one of the weaknesses that Redis has had as a database for a while is that it's never had a really good query language. Like if you've got a bunch of sets that represent records that you're caring about, and you want to go query and go give me all this, all the sets that have a value greater than this, that's hard to do. And Redis Search now provides that capability. So now we have a query language as well that allows us to go out and find things that match whatever it is we want to match on.
Do you remember some of the Redis Search commands? Can you show us something?
Yeah, sure. I can. I actually have a cheat sheet handy. It's right here.
Nice. You need it.
Yeah.
Hey, that looks a lot like SQL. Interesting.
Yeah. So to create an index, you say ft create and give it a name, and then you say on hashes. Right now we can only do hashes, but we're going to add other data types in the future.
Okay.
And then you say what hashes you want to prefix by, and then you give it a schema. So let me see if I got a better example here. That's a Bigfoot thing I've been working on that might be better for this. It was under the Bigfoot data service. I got some videos coming out. Probably will be out by the time we've released the video here. If I go to code dot here. So this is a little more involved of an example here.
Okay.
But if I'm going to go ahead and go to my other code window and quit that, I'm going to shut down Redis. And then I'm going to go over here and start Redis back up. We're using that version of Node. Start Redis. So Redis is up and running. And then we'll launch the Redis CLI. I do key star here. Not much there. So I need to load this up really quick. Sorry, this is we call it a little bit of an audible here.
Yeah, sorry about putting you on the spot here. Folks who are, this is completely unrehearsed, so we are doing it live. Yep.
So now if I do key star, so I got 4,586 Bigfoot sightings that are conveniently stored in hashes. So if I do hgetall, actually, let's look at this from Redis Insight, which is a little GUI for browsing your Redis database. So here we've got in Cleveland County, Arkansas, a Bigfoot sighting with no date or time. Let's find another one here. Here we go. So here's a Bigfoot sighting. It's got a location. It's got a date. It's got a title. So this is if we take the 14.841 and we do an hget all, what was that? 14.841. Hey, that's a palindrome. Yeah, that's wrong. There we go. So this is, there's 9 fields in this little thing here. And I'll just show you the code I use to get this thing running here. If we look at the server, if we look at, where is it at here? Sightings data. When this sightings data object's created, I call the create command.
Mm-hmm.
And my index name is just a little constant because I called it sightings index.
Right.
And on hashes and say prefix. And then you can specify multiple prefixes. I want one prefix that I want to look for. Anything that starts with sighting : Now I could do it. I could change this to a 2 and then look for UFO sighting, like that, right? And then it would look at both of those. But I don't want to do that. And then we go through and we say the schema. So in these hashes, there might be a field called title. Treat that as text. That means, like, if I type in the word footprint, show me all the ones that come back with the word footprint. Okay. Here we have observed. This is sort of the same thing as text. The title is like, I saw Bigfoot in the woods. The observed is the eyewitness account. You get the location details, which says exactly where the Bigfoot sighting is. Go down State Route 33, and then it's just 1 mile past, it's 300 feet past mile marker, whatever, right? Location is marked as a geotag, so we can do geo searches and say, find me things that are within a radius of this. And then we can do tags where we have a comma separated list of counties and states. In our case, we only have one, so it kind of acts like an enum. And then we can do queries against this. So,
what I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have a hash that has a number of fields, and you're picking some to build an index, because that's going to speed up your searches, right? Because that's what I'm reading.
It's going to let Redis do the search for you, as opposed to you having to go out and look for all the keys that match a pattern, and then looking at each one and saying, does it contain the thing I want? Like, you could manually go in and just pull back all the hashes you want and look at them, which would be really slow and tedious, and would be over the network, right? The other option is that you could build sets with the indexes you care about, and then create your own indexes manually. But then you got to write a bunch of code to manage all those indexes, and that's a big pain in the butt as well. And so search makes it so that you can just say, just go index these things, and it watches so that whenever you add something new, it updates the index. Okay. So you're not creating a one-time index; you're creating an index that it will then continue to be updated.
Right. Once you have the index, then you can keep calling. Do you call that index, or do you call the search function and it knows to use that index?
You call the search function, and then you give it the index name.
Got it.
So I'm going to demo that right here.
Okay.
So this is getting to the part where it's for the more advanced users who think Redis is just a cache, right? So I give it the index name, and then let's see, where's the rest of one of my queries here? And then I give it a query. And so let's say, let's just look for words that are text searchable. So let's just look for Walmart. Is it sightings index?
Maybe it doesn't have a hyphen.
Oh, I haven't actually run this code.
Okay.
So there's no, it hasn't generated the index yet. So let's do npm start. Oh, I broke something.
The ESM module loader.
Okay, well, yeah.
Oh, that's not it. What did you find? Maybe
I probably introduced a stray character somewhere.
Right. There's a question mark. It says unexpected.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I all right. Here we go. I'm using the nullish coalescing operator.
And it doesn't have that. You need Node 15.
And the older version of Node I had doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
There we go. Now my little service is running.
Cool.
And it has created an index. So if I go in here, It does not find anything containing Walmart. That finds that.
Mm-hmm.
So
there are Bigfoot sightings inside Walmart. Is that what we were saying here?
Yeah, I think he was buying a size 18 flip flop. But it seemed like a search term that there wouldn't be a ton of hits on, right? Whereas something like campground is going to find lots and lots of things. Mm-hmm. And I actually hooked this up to a little service, which is kind of fun, so I can hit localhost 80/sightings/ I need to look at my code here to find my commands. They're all in server.js. Mm-hmm. /state/ Ohio. This is all. There's 243 sightings in Ohio. We'll only return the first 100 because that's just what I wrote the code to do. So here at Stark County in 1992, there's our title. No observed. That's no fun. But yeah, near the line between Stark and Carroll counties, Class A. Here's one up in Huron, Ohio. So right, and so this was actually pretty easy to write because all I'm really doing is all the brains are in here, and most of these commands are just calling find. So what I do find by state, I'm doing this at state, so I'm specifying a field that I care about. Mm-hmm. So you say at state colon Ohio, and that returns, it's and put it in curly braces there, so that lets it know it's a tag. That'll return all the sightings in Ohio, right?
Can I ask you a question? Maybe
sure.
a dumb question, perhaps. But I want to understand these functions, these async functions that I see here. Are these functions that you have written as part of this application? Because obviously you have.
Yeah.
But then when you call the search function or search command, how does it know that it's going to use it? Is it using some kind of trick behind the scenes to map your search call with the actual method? How does it work?
No, I just wrote a little helper method. Okay. So I'm just bringing IO Redis here. So here we're calling call, and we're just passing it a raw command. So call is sort of the anything command. Okay. Right? And you just specify the command name there. Whereas like if you call .set, you don't have to say set. But I could actually say, this .connection .call set foo 42. I could do that, right? But I'm using it to call Redis search because IO Redis, this is a module, so IO Redis doesn't know search exists. So we use the underlying call command. So that's how I call this ft create. The find, I call this .find, and I pass in one of these queries, which matches exactly like what I did down here, right? This is the query string. Like I could say state containing Walmart. I got to put that in quotes. And then it turns out there are no Walmart Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. Good to know, right? But down here is the find function. So I'm calling search. I'm basically, this bit right here is what I just typed in down here.
Right.
Okay,
right. So you're simulating how an application will use this.
Right. And then this returns, like if we look at the structure here, we get like arrays of arrays of arrays of arrays. And so you get an array with the count, and then the key and the value and the key and the value and the key and the value and the key and the value. And then the value itself is an array, which is made up of keys and values for the things in the hash. So I'm just doing a lot of array manipulation here. The bulk of my code here is actually array manipulation to give this something nice for the API to come back. So that instead of getting like just this big list of lists, you get, this nice JSON object that's got a count, and it's got a sightings object, and then each of these, this is an array of JavaScript objects instead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just, that's the bulk of this code is doing this, but actually interacting with Redis search from the command line or from the code is very, very easy. It gives you that query language that you need to really store a lot of data in there and be able to search it.
Right.
So it's kind of cool.
So it makes it versatile, and it makes it so that you can apply it to various different types of scenarios and not just a key value store. I think this has been an invaluable lesson. I learned a ton. I haven't seen a demo like this, so thank you very much, Guy. I mean, you really got me excited about checking out Redis for a project that I may start on my own. Because for a lot of client projects that I do, I don't get to choose the technologies. A lot of times I have to stay within what the client knows. But when I'm starting something on my own, then the world's wide open. Why not use Redis? And especially since you have a free tier, right? Someone like me can say, well, let me just do it. And if it turns into a business, then maybe I'll pay for it, but at least I can get started. I think a lot of companies miss out on that, and they don't really offer an easy way for people to get started. And so they miss out on maybe future sales like that.
Yeah. And the free tier is an essential aspect of any good product. I mean, people. I mean, as a developer, what I do when I find out a new thing is like, okay, first off, I look and see, why should I care about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But once I pass that, then it's like, okay, I want to play with this. Okay, I look at pricing. Okay, what do I get from what do I get for free, and what do I have to pay for? It's like one of the first things I look at.
Yeah.
Before I even start playing with making a tool work. And the thing that I personally that irritates me is when it's a free for 30 days. It's like, don't give me a deadline on my learning, right?
That's true.
Right. It's because that's what happens whenever you sign up for the free for 30 days is it's like, okay, and then you run out of time and then you don't get back to it and then it's expired and then you're like, oh, well. And lots of times what I'll do when I see that is I won't even bother to sign up because I'm afraid I'll lose it.
Right.
It's like, no, I got to wait till I set aside time to really learn this before I sign up for the free 30-day trial.
So I think that's pretty smart of Redis to offer free forever. Is it?
Yeah, free forever. It's not high availability, so if something reboots, I mean, you can lose your data there.
We understand
but
that.
As soon as you,
right.
But as soon as you go into the next tier that's paid, which is it's like $7 a month, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that price, I think that price might be changing. But regardless, is once you go into that, the lowest paid tier, high availability becomes available, and they'll replicate that out to multiple servers.
That's nice.
So that you'll survive that. Your data survives the reboots and all of that.
So I think this is pretty good. And I'm sold personally, but someone's listening and watching right now, they might be thinking, well, there are other options. Key value stores, every cloud provider has their own, and there's so many others. Why should I care about Redis, and why is it better, or maybe why is it different? Here's your chance to do a sales pitch.
Well, I think I think there's a few reasons why Redis is a really good choice. One of them, and not just because I work there, right? Right.
You got to pay bills.
One of them is that it's the in-memoryness of it makes it act like a cache and a database. And so it's fast, but it also stores things, right? It's I think in my first blog post when I joined the company, I said it's and this is a joke for the old timers out there. It's a floor wax and a dessert topping. Right? Right? It does both of those things. It's a cache and a database. And so you get if you want to use it as a database, then you get a cache for free. If you want to use it as a cache, then you've got a little bit of work to do. But maybe you could get that database for free, and maybe you don't actually need to use a separate database. Mm-hmm. So I think that alone is pretty compelling. But then there's with the addition of the modules, it allows us to store different types of data. So you can have, so it's a key value store, but some of those keys can be, they can be JSON documents. They can actually be AI models.
The keys
They
can be
can
JSON
be
documents or values. Because I think you
well,
said keys.
they become they're JSON documents. So you can put an
Wow.
entire JSON document into a key, and then manipulate it atomically
Wow.
with various JSON manipulation operations using Redis JSON. It
Hmm.
can be a graph database. We've got probabilistic data structures, and so there's lots and lots of different things. And so you run into this interesting scenario where it's like, well, I got streams, I got PubSub. I can mix and match these together in interesting ways to build really interesting 1-2 punch sort of services that you couldn't do any other way.
Right.
And so, like one scenario that we like to sort of talk about a little bit at Redis is using streams as a Redis streams as a bus for microservices. But then you can also use that same Redis for the data, right? And so you've got one tech stack that you're using for all these things. It doesn't have to be the same instance. I mean, microservices, you want the data alongside the microservice, but they can still both be Redis. And you can, and like I said, you can combine things within the same instance. Like you could put search and there was a really good example using AI, using Redis AI along with Redis Graph. So you could use Redis AI to get the relationships between our things by asking questions and then shove that into a knowledge graph that you can then query.
Wow.
And so being able to combine those things together, I think is very compelling.
I think this is fantastic. So there's so much to learn, and we can go on, and this whole, there are probably lots of people working on this product, and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of developers actually using it every day. So there's a lot to learn. And so if we wanted to get more information about Redis or how to get started, what can we do, Guy?
So if you're just getting started, Redis.io is the site I showed at the beginning. Is the official documentation for Redis.
Cool.
And so this is for the open source Redis. And so here's the docs. Here's a full list of commands. Everything you need to know is in here. If you want to go, if you like watching videos, Redis University, which is part of the education team that I work with, we have a YouTube channel. We try to release 2 videos a week.
Nice.
With all kinds of content here. So we've got most recent one here is adding secondary indexing to existing data with Redis search. So more in depth on what I just did. Here's Justin talking about Redis streams. If you're a Java person, here's Brian doing a bunch of Spring Data Redis stuff.
Nice.
Here I'm talking about Redis AI. So we got a bunch of videos. We got explainer videos that go into detail. Lots and lots of videos out here that are worth checking out.
This is awesome. So Redis University, if you are on YouTube, or go to Redis.io for the open source, and there's documentation, there's commands. And because the product is mature and the product has been around forever, there's so many people that already know about this. So Stack Overflow, probably, I haven't done this, but I'm sure that there are lots of answers there. And if you have more questions, you can reach out directly to Guy Royse or reach out to me. Talk to me, ask me. I'm the expert now that I've had this tutorial. So now I'm pretty much an expert. So I will answer all your questions.
That's right. I can answer all your questions as long as I've got Google handy.
As long as I know Guy, I know a guy who's called Guy, I
got a guy. Yeah.
I got a guy, and I'll hook you up with Redis.
Can you get me some Redis? Yeah, I know a guy. Yeah. Actually, fun fact: there are 6 other people named Guy that work at Redis.
Oh wow!
Which is just weird, right?
That is interesting. They probably only hire guys, but
yeah. Well, capital G guys,
right? Capital G guys. Yes.
Our headquarters is in Tel Aviv, Israel, and a Guy is a fairly common name in Israel, so that's why that happened. I was quite surprised when I joined the company to learn that I was amongst the well-named. So.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been a pleasure. We have had a blast. This is a pretty long episode. We wanted to condense it down, but obviously there's so much to share. So if you let me share the link And there's a cool way of doing this. If I just can pull it up, I'm going to show right now that if you want, if you have any questions, you can email me at us@mentoringdevelopers.com. The Twitter handle is @mentoringdevs. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Find us everywhere. And if you can't find us somewhere, reach out to me and we'll add the podcast there. Also, if you want to get more information about this podcast, this is episode 95. So you know what to do. You go to mentoringdevelopers.com/episode 95. You get show notes and you can get all the links. And Guy's going to give me the nice little links that he's been talking about. We're going to put it there. So
Absolutely.
you don't have to feverishly write in your notebook if you're driving right now or if you are watching at home. Go to that website and get all this information. Okay, it's been a pleasure, and I think I'm so happy that I could get you back on the show, and I'm really happy that you're doing so well, especially since you're in town, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
After all of this is over, we should get together when we can. Maybe next year, maybe not this year.
We should get together, right?
Pretty cool. All right, everybody. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys later. And have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.